Today we come to the second chapter, which deals with the ascetic practices. They are given here because the practice of these helps us to further scrape away the mental defilements. So first, we need the purity of virtue or moral conduct, and in addition to that, we need to practice some of these ascetic practices, so that we can at least diminish the mental defilements. And in this chapter, 13 ascetic practices are treated. And it is said in the book that these 13 practices were allowed by the Buddha. In Vinaya Pitaka and also in Sutta Pitaka, these practices are mentioned. But these are not precepts. We practice them not as precepts, but as some in addition to the precepts. And there are altogether 13 of them, and the list is given in the book on page 59. The refuse rack wearers practice, 1. 2. The triple robe wearers practice, 3. The alms food eaters practice, 4. The house-to-house seekers practice, 5. The one-sessioners practice, 6. The bowl food eaters practice, 7. The later food refusers practice, 8. The forest dwellers practice, 9. The tree root dwellers practice, 10. The open air dwellers practice, 11. The charnel ground dwellers practice, 12. The any bed users practice, and 13. The sitters practice. And in Visuddhimagga, the meaning of the words, the meaning of the names are explained first, and then the practice itself. And the meanings, the explanation of the names are mostly with regard to Pali language. So the translation may be a little awkward. Now the first one is called refuse rack wearers practice. Now, before the robes were allowed by Buddha to be given by lay people, monks have to collect robes themselves. That means they have to go to places like a rubbish heap or a charnel ground or whatever, and then pick up pieces of cloth thrown away by people, and they cut out the parts that are weak, and then they take the good ones and they put them together into a robe. So that is the way monks obtained robes before the Buddha allowed robes to be given by lay people. And Buddha did not refuse to allow robes for monks given by people, but no occasion arose. So Buddha did not lay down any rule. Then at one time, the great physician Jivaka, he got 2 pieces of cloth, very good cloth, and so he went to the Buddha and requested the Buddha, offering these robes to the Buddha, and then requested him to allow monks to accept robes given by lay people. So from that time on, monks were free to accept robes given by lay people or to collect pieces of cloth on the roads and make them into robes. So the first one is the practice of the refuse rack wearer. And that means if a monk undertakes to practice this ascetic practice, and he he must not accept robes from lay people, but he must pick up material for robe and then make his own robe. And in the book on paragraph 15, there are 23 sources of robes, or actually robe material, and the cloth that are to be made into robes. So the first one is one from eternal ground, and the second one from a shop, and so on. So they are described in Visuddhimagga. So these 23 are the robes allowed for monks as well as for those who practice, who undertake these practices. Now, after explaining these 23 sources of robes, the author gave us some explanation about the practice. And so we go to paragraph 19. One given thus, we give it to the order, or got by those who go out for alms cloth, is not a refuse rag. Now, people sometimes give robes to the community, to the order, not to an individual monk. So the order accepts these robes, and when there are enough robes to be distributed, then distribution takes place. So a robe which has been given to the Sangha and which is got by the monk who practices this practice, for him this kind of robe is not a refuse rag, so he must not accept or he must not use such robes. That is, got as a share from the Sangha. Suppose there are 10 monks living in a monastery, and there are 10 robes. Then one of the monks will distribute these robes to different monks, and the best one goes to the eldest one, according to seniority of the years spent as monk. And then sometimes it seems that monks go out for alms cloth. That means go out to collect cloth instead of alms. The usual thing is we go out every morning for alms. We pick up our bowls and then go into the city to receive alms. So here they go out not for alms but for robes. So a robe got in that way is not a refuse rag. Then in the 23 sources of robe, there is one which is mentioned as a robe of a monk, robe of a bhikkhu. That means a robe given by a monk to another monk who who undertakes this practice. With regard to that, there is some something to know. And in this passage, in about 2 sentences, Nyanamoli misunderstood the word, the Pali word here. So I will explain, not following his translation. Now, a monk may give a robe to a monk who is undertaking this practice. But if the, let us say, non-Dutanga monk, and he is not practicing Dutanga, Dutanga means ascetic practice, and one who practices I will call Dutanga monk. Now, a non-Dutanga monk gives a robe to Dutanga monk. But when he gives robe to Dutanga monks, if he gives according to the seniority of the Dutanga monks, then that robe is not a refuse rack. That robe is not allowable for that monk. Sometimes people offer robes to those who who reside at their monastery. There are people who build a monastery or a building, and then they say, we will offer robes to the monks who live in our monastery. So that kind of robe is also not a refuse rack. So if a non-Dutanga monk gives robe to Dutanga monks, he must give them not according to seniority, but just give them as their personal gift. That is what is meant here. So in Nyanamoli's translation, he misunderstood one word, and that makes also no sense here. And in the case of one presented by a bhikkhu, one given after it has been got at the presentation of robes by householders at the end of the rains, that is quite wrong. There is a Pali word, vassa, and it means rain, or it means year. The secondary meaning is year, and also it means year spent by a monk. If somebody asks me how many vassa I have, and I'll say I have 41 vassa. That means I've been a monk for 41 years. And when the robes were distributed, they were distributed according to the seniority. Suppose there are 100 monks, but there are only 50 robes. Then 50 robes are distributed to the most senior 50 monks, and then they stop there. And when they get robes later, then they will distribute from the 51 and so on. So this is how the robes given to monks, given to the order, are distributed to the monks. So when they distribute, they must distribute according to seniority. So the Pali word vassa here means a year spent as a monk, and not at the end of rainy season. It's interesting, but it's funny because the word is Vassagga, Vassagga. Now, Vassa, Vassa, can mean rains or year spent as a monk, and Agga can mean the end, but it is not usual that it means end, but Agga means the edge. So he took this to mean the edge of rains, that means the end of rains, but it is quite wrong. Here, Agga does not mean the edge, but Agga is something like a portion or proportion as the Vassa. And Vassa here means not rainy season, but the year spent as a monk. So when a non-Dutanga monk gives robe to Dutanga monk, he must give not according to the seniority of the Dutanga monks, but just give them away. So that is the meaning here. That is the robe given by a monk to a Dutanga monk. Now, if that monk, a non-Dutanga monk, got the robe when the lay people put the robe at his feet, not into his hands, but they put the robe at the feet of the monk, and the monk picks up. If it is that way, and the non-Dutanga monk gives into the hand of the Dutanga monk, then it is called pure in one way. Because when the robe is put at the foot of a monk, it is called pure. But when it is given to the hand of a monk, it is not called pure. So it is pure in one way. Then, if lay people offer a rope to the monk into the hands of the monk, and that monk put the rope at the foot of a Dudanga monk, it also is pure in one way only. But if the lay people put the rope at the feet of the monk, and that monk gives that rope to the that monk gives to the Dudanga monk by putting the rope at the feet of the Dudanga monk, then it is called pure in both ways. Then the rope which is put into the hand of a non-Dudanga monk and then put into the hand of a Dudanga monk, that is called not so good rope. Let me see. Here it is said in the hand is not a strict man's rope. And the practitioner of this practice, this Dudanga, are divided into three: the best one, the medium one, and the least one. So there are three grades here given. So the first grade, the highest grade, one who takes it only from a charnel ground is strict. That is, he is the best one. He must take the rope from a charnel ground only. It is impossible nowadays. Even in our country, it is impossible. In the olden days, people wrap the body with a cloth and then leave it at the cemetery. It is not buried, or it is not cremated. So monks can pick up such cloth from charnel grounds. So nowadays there can be no first-class Dudanga monk in this respect. So the second one takes one left by someone thinking one gone forth will take it is medium. That means somebody leaves the rope somewhere so that some monks can see. So when he sees it, he can pick it up. So if a Dudanga monk takes that rope, then he is said to be of medium grade. And the mild one takes the rope put at his feet. So there are three in every practice, every one of the 13 practices. There are three grades of the practitioners, and then the benefits of the practice are given. He actually practices in conformity with the dependence. Now, the dependence means that there are 4 kinds of dependence for monks: clothing, food, dwelling place, and medicine. They are called dependence. And when a monk depends on the cloth got from charnel ground and so on, then he is said to be practicing in conformity with the teaching of this dependence. And he is also established in the first of the noble one's heritages. Now, and the reference is given here, A227. There are 4 noble one's heritages, and that is content with whatever robes one gets, content with whatever food one, that means a monk, whatever food one gets, content with whatever dwelling place one gets, and then practicing meditation. So these are called four heritages of the noble ones. So here the commentator said he is established in the first of the noble one's heritages, that is, content with whatever robes he gets. So this is the first. Then the second one. The second one is what? Triple robe wearer's practice. Now, there are 3 robes allowed for monks. And if a monk uses only 3 robes, then he is said to undertake this ascetic practice. Let me show you the 3 robes. I need a demonstrator. This is a lower garment. So this is one. And this is the upper robe. It's twice the size of that. These are the usual 2 robes we use every day. And there is another one called a Sangati in Pali. And it has 2 layers. We call it double robe. And it has more sections than the other robe. That has only 5 sections, or 5. We call them rooms, 5 rooms. But this may have about 25.
Who makes these robes?
And lay people now, they commercially make them. And this is actually used as a blanket. It is a double robe, and so in winter we use this as blanket. So these 3 robes are allowed by the Buddha. And when he wanted to allow robes, he tried it himself, the Buddha. It is said in our books that during the coldest day in the year, that is maybe in December, he put on only 1 robe during the night, and he tried it, and he could stay with 1 robe for the first watch of the night. Then he felt cold, so he took another robe, and he was able to keep himself warm enough with that robe until the second watch of the night. And then he take another robe, and then it could maintain him until the 3rd watch. So when at the end of the 3rd watch he felt cold again, so he took another robe, and so there were 4 robes. And these 4 robes he allowed to the monks. But these 4 became 3 because 2 are made into 1, and so we have now 3 robes. So a monk who undertakes to wear only 3 robes, no more robes, nothing to change, is called a monk who practices this kind of ascetic practice or dudanga.
I have a question for that. Do you think that might be too limited for that particular area that Buddha was born and so on? So if someone in Alaska or something would like to become a monk and want to follow strictly, it might be difficult because Buddha was not in Alaska.
That's right. Yeah. I'm wearing this shirt here and a hat. I would never use this in Burma. So we have to adapt to the climate of the place where we live in. But Buddha lived in India, and India was not so cool as America or as Alaska. So we have to modify some of his sayings. So maybe the minimum amount of clothing. See, you can survive with the least of the clothes, and that should be the minimum here. Some people have, say, 10 or 12 sets of clothes maybe, and they are actually not necessary. So what is a bare necessity for you? Maybe one set of dress, so something like that. Now, with regard to the practice itself, now monks have to dye the robes themselves in the olden days. So at the time of dyeing, first dye either the inner cloth or upper garment. Inner cloth means the smallest one, or the upper garment first. And having dyed it, he should wear that round the waist and dye the other. So when he dyes the robe, he put on one and then he dyes the other one. And then after dyeing, after he had finished dyeing, then he put on the other robe and then dye the other one, and so on. So the two robes, not this, the other two robes can be worn as an upper robe or as a lower garment at that time, at that moment. But this he should never put on like a lower garment. So this is mentioned here. Then he can put that on over the shoulder and tie the cloak of patches. So and the cloak of patches means this robe, Sangati. There are many patches here. But he is not allowed to wear the cloak of patches round the waist. So it should not be used as a lower garment, even temporarily. But this is the duty when an abode inside the village. That means inside the village or close to a village. But it is allowable for him in the forest to wash and dye two together. And he may have nothing to put on. But since he is in the forest, he could do that. However, he should sit in a place near to the rope so that if he sees anyone, he can pull a yellow cloth over himself.
Why is this color used?
I think it is easy to get this color, and it may be considered as appropriate for those who have left behind their home or home lives and then go into homeless life. And the color actually is something between yellow and brown. Not a specific color is mentioned, but it must not be red, it must not be a bright yellow, it must not be blue, something like that. So it comes to something somewhere between yellow and brown. And we get the dye from the bark of a certain tree or the inner core of the jackfruit tree. I have asked people here whether they know jackfruit tree, and they said no. Jackfruit. It is like similar to breadfruit tree. You don't know breadfruit either.
It's this big, isn't it?
The tree, you mean the trunk?
The fruit.
Yeah, the fruit also big. It has its outer skin has something like thorns, not sharp thorns, but something like thorns. This is a tropical fruit, and the inner core of that tree is dark brown color. So we take that inner core and then chop it down to small pieces and then boil. So we get dye. So when it is dyed with that dye, it comes to resemble something like this color. Now, a monk who undertakes this practice can have a fourth robe or fourth piece of cloth, and that is mentioned here. The shoulder, it is called shoulder cloth. That is just a piece of cloth. One span wide and three cubits long. So a piece of cloth to wrap around his body. That is to keep himself warm and also to keep to soak sweat so that it doesn't soil the the outer robe. So that is the only fourth piece of cloth allowed for him. Now the next one is alms food eater's practice. That means if a monk undertakes this practice, he must go for alms every day. He cannot accept food from food, or he must not accept invitations. And in this respect, 14 kinds of food are mentioned on page 67. Now, this alms food eater should not accept the following 14 kinds of meal. A meal offered to the order, a meal offered to specified bhikkhus. That means there is one monk who assigns monks to accept food. So he may assign one monk to take food at a certain man's house. So that kind of food is called the specified offer to specified monks. And then invitation, a meal given by ticket, that means by lot or by ticket, and one each half moon day, that means once in a fortnight. Some people offer food once in a fortnight. One each Uposatha day, that means the same thing. But Uposatha day means full moon day or new moon day. One each first of the half moon, that means one day after full moon and new moon. A meal given for visitors when you're visiting monks, a meal for traveling monks, a meal for sick monks, a meal for those who are nursing sick monks, a meal supplied to a particular residence, a particular vihara, and a meal given in a principal house, that means the first house in the village, and a meal given in turn, that is by turn, people give meals or food. So these are the 14 kinds of food which a Dudanga monk must not accept. So he must go out for alms, and he must accept only those given by lay people at each house or at the houses he wants to go. And there are also three grades. One who is strict takes alms brought forth from before and from behind. Do you understand that? From before and from behind means, suppose a monk is standing in front of this house. If he is standing in front of this house, and if a person from the house behind brings food, that means food from behind, and food from front means from the next house. So one who is strict takes alms brought forth from before and from behind, and he gives the bowl to those who take it while he stands outside the door. That means at the door he is standing. Then people come out and please give your bowl. We want to fill your bowl with food and offer to you, something like that. Then he will give his bowl. That is allowed for him. But he does not take alms by sitting and waiting for it to be brought later that day. The medium one takes as well by sitting and waiting for it to be brought later that day. But he does not consent to its being brought next day. So he does not accept or consent to be waiting the next day. The mild one consents to alms being brought on the next day and on the day after. Both these last miss the joy of an independent life. Sometimes I'm going to do what I want to do because I have accepted an invitation and I have to go to the invitation. So something like that is meant here. Both these last, the two monks, miss the joy of an independent life. There is perhaps a preaching on the noble one's ages in some village. The strict one says to the others, "Let us go, friends, and listen to the Dhamma." One of them says, "I have been made to sit and wait by a man, Venerable Sir," and the other, "I have consented to receive alms tomorrow, Venerable Sir." So they are both losers. They didn't get the opportunity to go to the Dhamma talk. The other wanders for alms in the morning, and then he goes and savors the taste of the Dhamma. Next one, let me see. In the benefits, let's read the benefits. He actually practices in conformity with the dependence because of the words, the going forth by depending on the eating of lumps of alms food. That's all right. He established in the second of the noble one's heritages. His existence is independent of others. It is a requisite recommended by the Blessed One thus. Valueless, easy to get, blameless. Idleness is eliminated. Livelihood is purified. The practice of the minor training rules of the Patimokkha is fulfilled because these minor training rules said that you must go for alms, and when you go for alms, you must be mindful of something like that. He is not maintained by another, so he does not depend on another. He helps others. Pride is abandoned. Craving for taste is checked. The training precepts about eating as a group, substituting one meal, invitation for another, and good behavior. Now, here also he misunderstood one word. This sentence refers to three precepts or three rules for monks. One rule said that if a group is invited, then they must not go in a group and accept the food. They must go by one, but not as a group. So, a group here means 4 monks or more. And substituting one meal invitation for another means going to or accepting the later invitation. Suppose somebody came to me and invited to take food. Then another man came. And if I accepted the second man's invitation and actually accept the food of the second man, then I break this rule. So this is what is meant here. Substituting here means just not accepting or taking the food of the first man, but taking the food of the second man. That is why we have to be careful about the invitations. It is first come, first serve basis. We cannot, or we are not to skip one invitation in favor of another, or in favor of the later. And then good behavior is not good behavior. He misunderstood the word here, that the word here is charita. Now there is another rule that forbids monks to visit houses, either before or after taking meal at a house. Suppose I am invited to take meal at a house. Before taking meal at that house, I must not visit another house. And after taking meal at a house, I must not visit another house. If I want to visit, then I must inform another monk. Venerable sir, I'm going to visit this house, that house. So if he informs another monk who is close to him, then it is all right. If there are no monks, or if he does not inform another monk and visits a house either before or after taking meal at that house, then he breaks that rule. So that rule is called in Pali charita. Charita can mean good behavior, and it can also mean wandering, going about. So here, that's the second meaning. So visiting. So 3 rules are referred to here. Accepting food as a group, and then accepting the later invitation, and visiting houses before and after taking meal at the appointed house. If you go for alms every day, you don't have to worry about these rules. You will not break any of these rules, because you do not eat, you do not accept an invitation, but you go out for alms. So there can be no breach of these rules if you undertake the practice of going out for alms every day. The next one is house-to-house seeker. That means if a monk undertakes this practice, then he must not skip a house. Suppose he walks through one street, and if there are 10 houses, he must stop at 10 houses, at each house. He must not skip this house and go to next house. So that is what is meant by house-to-house seeker. So in order for him to be convenient, the commentator gave advice here. First, he must look whether the road is clear. Then if it is not clear, he must not take that road, but take another road. And if he does not get food at a certain house or at some houses, say every day, then he can regard those houses as not houses. So he can skip those houses, because every day they do not give him food. So in that case he can skip it. Then in the benefits, paragraph 33, about third or fourth line, he avoids the dangers in being supported by a family, and that is not correct here. He always makes this mistake. He avoids the dangers in frequenting families. A monk who frequents families is considered a bad monk and not good behaving monk. But if he goes for alms, then he doesn't have to visit them, and so he avoids the danger of being intimate with families or with lay people. The next one is one sesana. That means eating at one sitting only. When the one sessioner sits down in the sitting hall, instead of sitting on an elder seat, he should notice which seat is likely to fall to him and sit down on that. Now, in a monastery where many monks live, and there is a dining hall, and monks sit according to seniority. So he must go a little earlier and then try to find a place where he would not be, he doesn't have to give his seat to a senior monk, because the monks are to sit according to seniority.